horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and this is actually another Patreon request, a request by jamaral81. If anyone would like to make a request, you can go over to Room 237 Reviews Patreon. There's 5 different tiers that you can choose from, and hopefully you'll do that. If not, thank you anyway. But jamaral81 is a patron of the tallest tier, so he gets a few requests this month. And this was another one he wanted me to do, which is 2001's Non Sohono. That's the Italian title. Or Sleepless, which Dario Argento's 2001 film. Now, also this month, he had me do Dario Argento's The Card Player from 2004, which is up. Now, both of those films are known as Argento's return to the Giallo genre. Of course, Giallo was started by Bava, then it was redefined by Argento in 1970. And Argento has pretty much been known as the master of Giallo. At least I look at him as the pinnacle Giallo filmmaker. Although Bava is also great, so Sergio Martino. There's a bunch of good ones. And Argento is also known for his not really a decline in his career after the 80s, but it's more of just like, 80s, 90s, and then all the way down. But this is his first Giallo since 1987's Opera. This came out before Card Player. And the more, I was actually reading about this film, and when I see people, I really need to make a video on the differences between slasher and Giallo, and how they're not the same thing, and what is what. Because seeing comments on different websites calling this a slasher, calling Tenebrae, Opera, Phenomena a slasher, but Suspiria is a Giallo, it really hurts my head to... That's a different video. Sleepless, of the two 2000s Giallos by Argento, Sleepless and Card Player, I was actually really impressed by Sleepless. I actually really enjoyed this film. Card Player was more, it was watchable. It was a good movie, I thought. It wasn't an effective Giallo. And it did not feel like Argento. There was so many things of Argento that was absent, that is present here. One, we have Goblin coming back for the score. Great score, by the way. And we have Argento's, not completely, but his visual flair is back. Not necessarily his Bava-esque vibrant colors that you would see in Suspiria and Inferno, Phenomena, even in its own way, Tenebrae. But his tracking shots are present here. Not so much his, symmetrical shots that he's also known for, but his tracking shots are back. And in a very cool way. The biggest one being the carpet, the red floral carpet with the goblin, the sort of, imagine Goblin, but their version of like a heavy metal riff. That score leading up to a decapitation. That's the biggest tracking shot in the film, and the most effective. The story I actually really liked. For a while, it was kind of losing me. I was thinking, wow, this is sort of like card player as not really an effective Giallo, because a lot of time, mostly speaking, a Giallo has someone outside of law enforcement who gets mixed up in the murder mystery, solves it for themselves, usually leading to obsession. Card player was more like a Seven or Bone Collector type of detective procedural. Here you have Max von Sydow, great actor, may he rest in peace. He passed away recently. In fact, he died this year in March. I meant to make a video tribute to him. I don't know why I didn't. But great actor. He is a retired detective who actually comes out of retirement to solve this case with a young kid. Well, somewhat kid. I mean, he's basically an adult, but he's young. Whose mother was killed 17 years prior. Because what it is it opens up in 1983. There's a series of murders. Sydow believes it's being committed by this one dwarf who is played by... Where is his name? Luca Fagioli. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But then he turns up dead, so then the case is closed, and he's known as the killer. 17 years later, there's a resurgence in killings that are done very similar, almost the same as the case before. So it's a case that's really calling to Sydow. He really feels he needs to come out of retirement to solve it. It was more of a case that was laid to rest than was really solved. And the Stefano Dionisi plays Giacomo, who's the young kid he's working with, whose mother was killed in the previous set of killings. And the really interesting thing is, this one is more like Seven in the style of victims rather than, or killings, rather than the detective procedural, because there's actually a nursery rhyme that the killer uses, and called the Animal Farm rhyme, which was actually written by Ossia Argento, his daughter, where it talks about a farmer who can't sleep, so he, at different times in the morning, he kills a farm animal that's making noise. So which I think is what the title Sleepless refers to. Max von Sydow's character, it's mentioned that he has insomnia, but it's not like Insomnia with Al Pacino, where it's a big part of the plot. So I think Sleepless refers to the farmer who can't sleep within the rhyme. Which, looking at other Giallo titles, very tiny details like the bird with the crystal plumage, it makes more sense to go with that. Sydow, he actually came up with the idea because when he's at home going over all this information, he's talking to his pet parrot. Originally in the script, Argento had it that he would talk to himself. That's how he goes over all the information that he's acquired. Sydow came up with the idea to have a pet parrot, and Argento really liked that idea. So the killer, it is a black-gloved killer, like, which is a Giallo trope. He cuts out paper shapes of animals and leaves them with the victim. Like the first one is a pig, and it's a prostitute. You know, the pig, whore, throat slit. The chick, I cannot remember for whatever reason. Someone will say it in the comments, but you know, the farmer also talks about drowning a kitten. He drowns this goth girl at like a rave. There's a rabbit, which is a girl that works at a fast food joint. You know, fast food, rabbits are fast. The rhyme also talks about how the rabbit bit the farmer, and when the girl's being strangled, she bites his hand. And that's probably my favorite death in the whole film, which the fast food girl, because that's also a tracking shot. She's trying to get into her building. There's a tracking shot. Then we follow her up her steps, and then the camera sort of goes like that. And we see her get her face bashed against the wall. Again, put to Goblin's awesome score. We see she bites him, but then he bashes her face against the wall. That is the vicious, stylized death that Argento is known for. You know, it's that kind of flair that reminded me of like the shirt death in Tenebrae, when she's taking her shirt off. We see through the neck hole of the shirt that she's stabbed and blood spraying on her. And then the last one is a swan, which is a ballet dancer, which is when we get the long tracking shot of the carpet, which we then see the killer's shoes. Her feet are levitated because he's holding her up, guessing with fiber wire, and then her head falls. Decent effect too, because we sort of see the eyes blink and the tongue kind of moves a little bit. So I thought that was cool. There's different versions of this film. The Scorpion Blu-ray is the most uncut version. I saw this for free on YouTube. There's one that is 5 minutes shorter. Normally it runs 117 minutes. This was 112. But I guess the big censor version doesn't show the head falling after the decapitation. This one did. So I'm thinking it's like the end credits are cut or something. There was another version that I thought was like 20 minutes longer, but it's YouTube. Some movies will play throughout and then it will restart for like another half hour or whatever. But I'm pretty sure I saw the uncut version. This does have a lot of twists and turns in it. I will say spoiler alert before I reveal who it is, but it feels like Argento is really going back to a lot of his older films. Well, actually, before I say that, there's a bunch of other deaths too. Like there's this one guy who gets stabbed in the temple with a pen, but first the killer writes on his hand, but he can't see what it is. Sidow, I think, sees it, but then later on realized there was writing on a hand of a past victim that says, "I'm a bad boy." We see the deaths from 83, which I think the first one was a prostitute. A couple more deaths. One death was actually in a scene that reminded me of Deep Red, which I'll get to. And that's what I mean by, it feels like he's going back to his older films, because the nursery rhyme can kind of be like the children's melody in Bird with the Crystal Plumage. I think that's a bit of a stretch. But there's a scene that is very much, like, if you remember Deep Red, the part with the puppet coming forward, there's a scene that's kind of like that. The killer dwarf is sort of a callback to Phenomena. It's hard to talk to without spoilers, so I'm just gonna get into spoilers. I really enjoyed this film. I liked it a lot more than Card Player. I would feel comfortable saying this is probably Argento's last really good film. Definitely his last good Giallo. This felt more like an Argento Giallo, or just a Giallo in general. Card Player, even though it is a Giallo, it was not an effective one. It felt more like a detective procedural. But if you're a fan of Argento, I would check it out. You have Goblin back on the score. Great performance by Max von Sydow, especially the scene where he's remembering the nursery rhyme, because they actually have to find the rhyme first, but first he's recalling it to his parrot. It's a great, just a great little scene of him acting. Kind of lost what I wanted to say. And Argento's visual flair, although not full force, you have his tracking shots and when you see the tracking shots mixed with some stylized deaths put to Goblin's score, it feels like Argento is back. And at least I felt that way. So spoilers here. So we find they want to... so the dwarf in question 17 years ago supposedly shot himself. They want to exhume his body, which, while Sydow and the kid are doing their own investigation, the actual detectives are doing their investigation, and we get the idea that to them they're just trying to solve a case. There's even a line when the kid says, it's different for me because my mother was killed. This isn't just another case or a hobby. And then there's one point where Sydow calls the detective, because I can't remember his name, he calls him cold as a machine. Pretty much meaning there's nothing to it for him. But they do get with the mother of the killer, or of the dwarf, as like an okay to exhume the body. They also find the full rhyme when they're with her. And it goes into a little animation scene with the animals that I thought was a nice touch. But there's a part when the mother of the dwarf is by herself, and we see this person walking towards her, a smaller person. She gets frightened, walks backwards, and falls off a balcony to her death. Later on, we see that it's a puppet or a robot, or I've seen it worded as robot. I guess it would have to be to walk towards her, but pretty much a puppet. So that's kind of like Deep Red. There's the revelation at the end, then there's the further twist, which is I kind of got confused towards the end because there's a whole thing with phones. Basically, there's going to be someone called Stefano Dionisi to come to this one place. So he goes there, and he has a friend named Lorenzo, who's been his friend for years. And when he gets there, there's this person that's dead. I can't remember who the character is, forgive me. But, Max von Sydow dies. That's a complaint I do have. I guess it makes it so the kid can solve the case on his own, but at least he doesn't get killed. That would have been really shitty. He dies of a heart attack, which, is kind of anticlimactic, I guess. But anyway, which he has a heart attack because the killer does present himself and talk to him in his home. He sees the person and he kind of chuckles at the identity as he's having a heart attack. But they're at this place, and his friend Lorenzo, his father's there. And his father is someone we've seen throughout the film. And his father is actually played by, I want to get the actor's name because I don't remember it, Gabriel Lavia. Now, Gabriel Lavia was in Deep Red. And the characters are kind of similar, but reversed. In Deep Red, he played Carlo, who is protecting the killer. Okay, if you haven't seen Deep Red, spoilers for that as well. He's protecting the killer, who is his mother. Here, he's protecting the killer, who is his son. For a while, we're meant to believe he's the killer, but then we get the full twist at the end. So when Lorenzo was a kid, he heard the nursery rhyme about the farmer killing animals, and he said it drove him nuts. And he started killing women the same way, including Stefano Dionisi's mother. And which I was like, okay. Which also kind of like Phenomena, because that means a kid was doing killings back in '83. And the actor who plays Lorenzo, Roberto Zabetti, he sort of starts doing this like cackly, high-pitched, laughing child voice, which at times was eerie, but all otherwise just kind of silly and odd. So just as he's about to kill his friend, he gets shot through the head from outside because he was the one that called Stefano Dionisi to meet there, and the cops had already tapped the phone line, so they knew he was there, and they shot him through the window. And like typical Giallo or Argento or even Italian films, the story's over at that point. There's no epilogue or closer. Credits just start rolling. Might feel like I'm not talking about a lot here, but I really did enjoy this film. It felt like a return to form for Argento, because he had a lot of bad movies. And I mean, Stendhal Syndrome was okay. Phantom of the Opera was bad. I don't... if I ever review that, which I will, I'll have to rewatch it because I don't really remember anything from it. But and yeah, there's more deaths. Like we actually, like his mother was killed with a French horn, which I thought was a clarinet, like through the mouth or whatever. And when Stefano Dionisi puts it together, it's because he hears something to do with his inhaler. I didn't really get what that was, because he's always hitting an inhaler, and he said when he heard his mother being killed, he heard the I've been on an inhaler for the last 27 years. And he said, so I knew about that sound. And he says, you didn't have a dust allergy then, you don't now. It's been a cover so they wouldn't suspect you or whatever. I thought that was, unless I missed something, I thought that was kind of a stretch. But, you know, I really liked Max von Sydow's performance. I liked how he teamed up with this young kid whose mother was killed. They're the last case. It's like a copycat killer who's copying not just murders from before, but from some literary source, kind of like the Bone Collector. I like how it was, you know, sort of metaphorical with the animals and how he left the shapes of animals behind. But also, I like that it was Argento, you know, like I said before. His visual flair is back, even as much as it's back. Goblin doing a great score. Stylized deaths. Again, my favorite was the rabbit with the girl getting her head bashed against the wall. The only complaint I would have, I guess, would be it does suck that Max von Sydow died. Sort of similar to, actually, never mind. But, yeah, it sucks that he died. At least he wasn't killed. That would have really sucked, but, yeah. Argento's 2001 Sleepless, I would say, is his last really good film. I'm actually going to be reviewing Mother of Tears soon. I've got that coming in. I saw it years ago. I don't remember much. But, yeah. So, that'll be fun. But, yeah. So, jamaral81, I hope you enjoyed this video. I feel like I didn't talk about it enough, at least plot-wise. I feel like it was all over the place. I apologize for that. But a Patreon request for jamaral81. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.